Gail Zuckerman, and this is Growing Older with Gusto. Each episode, I interview people who are growing older in an inspiring way. Whether you're 30, 60, or 80 years of age, these interviews will help to conquer your fear of aging. Please subscribe to our channel and check out our website at www.growingolderwithgusto.com. Say about a man in his 60s who can do a handstand on a ledge. You say, I want to eat what he's eating. So hello, fellow super agers. Welcome to Growing Older with Gusto. I am Gail Zuckerman, host of this podcast that we created to bring out different aspects of growing older in a productive and positive way, whether you're 30 or 60 years old. And today we have as our guest Lee Mowatt, the creator of the Aging Academy podcast, who shares with us many tips for overcoming ageism, health obstacles, and he provides a new context to our Growing Older with Gusto theme. So he has a lot to tell us today, so we should get going. So welcome to the show, Lee.
Thank you, Gail. I want to thank you for letting me talk with you today. And by the way, I will be 70 at my next birthday.
Wow. Congratulations. So, when is that? When's the big day?
May 1st.
Oh my God. Well, you got
so
some time.
I call myself 70 now. I mean, I don't make a distinction between 69 and 70. So I call myself 70 now. So you may hear me refer to myself as a 70-year-old man.
Well, you're looking at least 10 or 20 years younger, just so you know.
That's what people say. They say I wear my age very well, but
you do. You need to bottle that up and sell it.
I'm just trying to inspire other people to do the same.
Okay. So, I'm ready to hear all your secrets. So let's start out. Tell us about the Aging Academy podcast. Mm-hmm. I love the name, by the way. That's a great name.
Well, the name came about because I was being sued for my previous name, but that's a different story. So I figured. I sat and thought one day, who teaches us how to get older in this culture? This culture just simply lets us get older and old and old and old. It simply lets us do it. It doesn't show us how to do that. We learn how to be adults sometimes. We can even learn how to be teenagers or learn how to be good workers. But no one teaches us how to get old in this country, in this culture. And so I wanted to, one, learn myself, and two, help other people learn. The podcast was started about, maybe 2.5 years ago. And I'm really, really shocked at the success that podcast has had. I wanted to just basically help others understand that growing older was a rite of passage that we all have to go through, just like our teenage years, and it's a blessing. It is a true blessing.
It's a gift.
To grow older. Yes, it's a true gift to grow older in the man if the culture doesn't rob us of that gift. And that's when I started to take the topics that I interview on and try and offer them to people as another perspective of empowering our aging years. And so I made many different perspective shifts that hope to inspire our older years and reveal the treasure that lies inside, not just for ourselves, but for the culture around us as well.
So tell us about some of the guests that you host on your podcast.
Well, many times I choose topics that, for example, one of my more intriguing podcasts is, does aging increase our own spirituality? Because our spiritual health becomes a lot more important and I'm not talking about religion here or anything like that, but just understanding that we are more than what we see through our eyes, that kind of spirituality. And that becomes more important as we age. So one of my topics was, does aging increase our spirituality? But I have topics on elder abuse. I have topics on, deriving wisdom from older people. For example, I interview many older people because they have information for all of us that can empower our lives and move our forward path in a much more positive direction. They have been through the hardships and challenges that we all must go through. And so I like to interview them as well on my podcast. So there's been many interesting topics, including controversial ones like cellular regeneration and medical marijuana. All of this, I embrace it all, because at this age, nothing really should be left out. I even talk about death. And do several topics on
that
death.
Conversation, right?
Yes. The conversation of death is extremely important. So I try to approach those topics that are relevant to older people, but should be interesting to younger people too, as long as we turn our thoughts to what it's like when we get older or being older or whatever have you. So, those are the topics I tend to choose on my podcast. And the podcast can be found as your podcast is. I've listened to many of your episodes, Gail.
Thank you.
The podcast can be found on iTunes and Stitcher, the standard podcast directories where you find your podcast.
Okay.
But I think the best way to access this is through my website, the Aging Academy.
Let me ask you this. I noticed that your tagline reads, grow older without growing old. So it appears that you are definitely differentiating between those two words. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Oh,
How do they differ?
That's a cute phrase that I turn out, older versus old. I am older than I was last year, as are you, as are everyone. So older is not a choice we have. Biology and our bodies forces us to grow older, but old is a different matter altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Old is a spiritual decline, not a physical decline. It is, older is something that biology does to us, but old is something that only we can do to ourselves. What being old is essentially chipping away at our own self-esteem for one reason or another. The culture helps us do that, of course. Our own bodies can sometimes help us do this. But by looking at this thing correctly, we can maintain a self-esteem that really fights old. We cannot fight older, but we can easily fight old.
Speaking of those two words, another word that crops into my mind that you hear a lot these days is ageism. Can you tell me a little bit about what exactly is cultural ageism when you hear that term?
Well, that's a somewhat complicated topic because, there are many isms in our culture right now: racism, sexism, ageism, and things of that sort. And ageism is just another form of marginalizing or discriminating against older people. Now, I come from a technology background. I'm a software engineer before I retired. And so you can readily see ageism in that kind of tech culture. Mm-hmm. Older workers being looked at strangely because of their age, while younger workers are being given the grandiose jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And so ageism in that environment is rather obvious, but it's prevalent all throughout the society. We see old people walking the streets and we feel sorry. No one tells us that being this age can be a very happy, uplifting experience. So the culture tends to put a downtrodden spin on what being older is like, and we don't discover until we get here, assuming we've held our self-esteem, that this is not necessarily a true picture at all. It's been studied that many people in their 60s and even 70s, sometimes even 80s, are at the happiest points in their life. And so,
and a lot of people also invent things or write books or
absolutely.
And I even heard Warren Buffett made his money after the age of 65. So.
Exactly.
Right.
The things that, how old how do we want to limit ourselves is the question. And when do we want to start limiting ourselves? I choose not to try to limit myself at all. And I found a power and a passion that keeps a sort of youthful image about me. And it's not how many wrinkles we have, how large our wrinkle collection is. It's about how we make other people feel. When we walk away from an older person, how do we feel? Do we feel young in spirit? Do we feel that that person has imparted something to us? Do we feel a life in that other person? When we do, we cannot call that person old.
Yeah, and that's all our concept on the podcast here is how older people can impart their wisdom to help younger generations lose that fear of aging and the cultural ageism that goes with it that we've talked about.
Yes.
So,
younger people listening to older people is one of the things that keep older people alive in other cultures where where the elders are respected and sought after for their information.
Right.
In Alaska and in India have
in Philippines and China too. Yeah.
Exactly. They have a reverence for older people that benefits the entire culture, from young to old. In this culture, we've marginalized our older people. So I've the Aging Academy tries to teach about that and to fight against that and to help us educate ourselves against those kinds of stereotypes. Now, cultural ageism, I often explain in terms of placebos. You know, a placebo, as you know, is often thought of as a sugar pill that if you're given the information that it cures a headache, your headache will be cured. In 20% of the cases, the placebo effect has a real effect. If you're given the information that will cure your high blood pressure, it may do that. 20% of the cases have that. Well, the same thing happens for our cultural stereotypes, but in reverse. We are subconsciously given placebo pills in terms of our commercials, our television programs, or even our birthday cards that tell us what aging should be like for us. And so we unconsciously or subconsciously assume these characteristics. We start to lose our memory. We feel our aches and pains and call it getting older, but these are just placebos. Fighting these kinds of perspectives is what the Aging Academy strives to do, to help us understand that the power of getting older is something that we can look forward to rather than something that we fear.
As part of the aging process, it seems that our relationship, our connection with the past or the future shifts a little bit and changes. And what can you tell us about having a healthy approach to handling this as we age?
Well, the past and future are always with us. As we get older, of course, there's more past behind us than there is future.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up one day and I said that there are many more days behind me than there are ahead of me. The past contains our lessons. Everything we have learned, our memories are in our past, and these help shape the people we are today. But the future contains our hopes and dreams, and this is where our power is. Our hopes and dreams is what keeps us alive. To lose our hopes and dreams is one of the strongest elements of chipping away at our self-esteem and becoming old as a result. So our past is important, don't get me wrong. I don't want to devalue the past,
Mm-hmm.
but many of us in around my age start to reduce what we see in the future. And I'm saying this is a big mistake. Our future is just as vibrant as it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We still have plans. And as you yourself have pointed out, Warren Buffett made a lot of his money when he was an old man. So.
No, wait a minute. 65 is not old. He was older, right?
Thank you. I just use that as a colloquialism, but our hopes and dreams do not depend on the years we have been living in this earth. We can have no hopes and dreams at 20 and a huge amount of hopes and dreams at 70. So it is not a question of years, it is a question of our heart and passions. So that's how I take the future and past. For me, my future is extremely valuable, and I try and teach others to create their future ahead of them, because that's what will help keep them alive.
Very interesting. I know that we're going to get into this in a minute. You've had several setbacks as far as health. And I know as we get older, a lot of people they fall, whatever happens, they do have setbacks, but you seem to be able to conquer this, and instead of seeing it as a setback, see it as a reset, what I call a reset. So to me, you're like this miracle man, and I've heard and read about your medical adventures. And so can we talk to that a little bit? Because it's just amazing what you've done and overcome.
Sure. I think the label of miracle man is an overstatement, I suppose, but that's me talking. That came about because in 2004, I had a very devastating accident. It was the worst accident. I have accidents all the time. I'm rather daring in my life, et cetera. But that accident was a workup. I was broken from head to toe. I had head injuries, lung injuries, and I had a severed leg. And the doctor said, you're not going to be able to use that leg again. They wanted to amputate the leg, but my wife at the time says, you do not know this man, do not amputate that leg. The doctor was trained under those conditions to amputate the leg, and my wife insisted, you have to reconstruct. So I knew that I had been compromised quite severely, and I knew that I had to, either I was going to live my life in a wheelchair, or I was going to walk again, one of those two. Either way, I was going to be the best person I possibly could be. That accident turned out to be one of the biggest blessings of my entire life, because the person that went into that accident is certainly not the person that came out of that accident.
How are you different?
I was different. Well, in the end, I'm more focused outward now. My desire to help the world or people around me is so much more stronger than it is now, than it was then. And so, like before, I watched everyone save my life, and I was just a simple software engineer doing, twiddling bits for other software engineers. I wasn't connecting to life. I wanted to connect to life. I wanted to give to life so much more. I wanted to be a kinder person. I wanted to earn what has been given to me in my recovery. They gave me a gift of life, and otherwise I would be dead. And when you see yourself that close to dying, you never walk away from that in the same way. You are always transformed by such things. And dying in that manner and coming back, I was in a coma for quite a while, so when I came out, I just wanted to do good, be kind, be at peace, and teach others peace or something that helped them. And so that's part of the reason why the Aging Academy came about, because I saw so much pain that people had in getting older. Yet the 60s, Gail, my 60s, between 50 and 70 in May, has been the best decade of my entire life. When people hear me say that, I had my accident when I was 54 years old, but starting from that recovery, things built up and built up and built up to produce an amazing set of, skills and feats that I was able to demonstrate. I had a reputation of becoming the grandfather of strength, and to help other people understand how recuperation happens. There's been other medical adventures as well, for example.
Right. And I know that you've talked a little bit about that. Those are things that are beyond your control that happen to everybody along the way.
Well, yes,
you live long
I
enough.
had a stroke in 2016. Now, a stroke is not really an age-related event, but at that point, I had to study something different. Again, you said reset rather than setback, and I had to actually reset everything. I had to do a large amount of studying on what a stroke was, because I wanted to give that information to others. I use that desire to recover from stroke. I started to investigate neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is when the brain reforms its functions so that it can perform what it used to do. And I discovered that whenever the brain cannot do what it's accustomed to doing, it will find another way to do it. There's so many routes in there. And I've coined this particular phrase from that particular time. Whenever we do what we cannot do, the more we do what we cannot do, the better we can do what we cannot do, until we cannot say we cannot do it anymore. So I use that phrase to overcome the deficiencies of my stroke. I couldn't make sense of my hands, for example, and trying to pick up coins, and and when I came out of the hospital, I couldn't even sign my name. And then watching my name improve over the course of 2 weeks through practice, through neuroplasticity, was an eye-opener to me. And to this day, you'd never recognize that I've had a stroke. I have a speech about it on my YouTube channel it's called The Lighter Side of Having a Stroke, because I wanted to poke fun at what having a stroke was about. I wanted to, not make it so serious. And here I am today, just about fully recovered. And, I want to help other people understand that there is no death sentence here unless you die. The only death sentence is death itself. And
so part of successful aging, according to you, is not so much about how fit you are, but basically about how healthy you can be in dealing with chronic illnesses or accidents.
That's correct. My YouTube channel gives helps people to misunderstand my message. If you look at the videos on my YouTube channel, you see some phenomenal feats that no 70-year-old should be able to do. Right.
We're gonna get into that in a second. You beat me to it. I know that you do have a YouTube channel, and it's very diverse in its content. So I'm wondering, is this part of your Aging Academy, or is it a separate effort or message you
Well,
want to get out there?
it started out as a separate effort. I wanted to show off a bit, but I also wanted to deliver a message. So I produced several television shows, which you will see on my YouTube channel. And I was already involved when I created the YouTube channel, already involved in delivering a message that educated me and others. It's not just others, but me, myself, about aging. But in the recovery process from the stroke and the accident, I became so strong as to be physically strong to be able to demonstrate certain things that other people called amazing. And so I have a whole series of videos on my YouTube channel that show my workouts, show me in the gym, show me on the Olympic rings. And when people visit my YouTube channel, they tend to focus on the fitness videos when there's so much more there. I am proud of my fitness, of course, don't get me wrong, but this is a passion of mine. You don't have to be as fit or as strong as I am to age beautifully. You have to be as healthy and as strong as you need to in order to execute the passions that still resides in your heart. That's how strong you need to be. For me, my passion is, well, you'll see it on my videos. I have a passion for body strength and that kind of fitness, but that is not essential to age gracefully, not at all. But again, I'm proud of it, and it's there, and it attracts people, and it's amazing to me and others that a 70-year-old man can do that kind of stuff. So
It's amazing to us too. So what about your eye surgery? I don't know what type of eye surgery you have. How did you overcome that? Sight is so important.
Oh God, yes. I'm learning that now. We spoke about setbacks, medical setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. Well, recently I started to get blurry vision in my right eye. And as you know, I'm upside down quite a bit doing handstands, headstands. I have pictures of handstands and headstands all over the country, and I tend to do them in dangerous places, and I'm proud of that. But being upside down has increased my ocular pressure, especially my right eye, and the optic nerve has been damaged from being upside down so much. So the pressure in the eye had to be relieved. So I had to have surgery in order to stop what was happening from happening anymore. But as a consequence, Gail, I can no longer be or I should no longer be upside down. I can and have a very strong desire to do headstands and handstands still, but I have to protect the remaining eyesight that I have. And so we went to surgery in May. And again, now that I have to stop being amazing in one way, there are many ways to be amazing, and I have to discover another way to be amazing.
Oh, and if anybody can, it will be you. That's for sure.
Well, people have been trying to help me understand other ways to be amazing, and I've had some interesting ideas. But I'm keeping that in the bag until I actually come out with how Lee Mowatt's going to be amazing, since he can't do headstands and handstands in dangerous places anymore.
Well, anything else up your sleeve you do care to share with us today?
Basically, my own message, my own passion is about helping other people understand how powerful we are as a group. Those people 65 and older are it's a national treasure that we have here. And how our culture does not take advantage of that, and how our own perspectives can fight against that for ourselves personally, for the culture around us, and for the benefit of those we love, to make a demonstration of what getting older is really all about. It's about wisdom. It's about personal power.
Absolutely.
It's about spirituality. It's about those things that connects us more to life. Even though our bodies are different, our spirit is still alive and embracing all of life. And so, this to me is one of the biggest elements about growing older that I appreciate very much.
So, Lee, if somebody would like to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach you?
Okay. Well, the Aging Academy website is where I keep all my podcasts. It's all free on the website. I charge for nothing. So you can get to the Aging Academy website by the Aging Academy, those three words together, no spaces, .com.
Great.
That brings you to the homepage of the website. From there, you can see all the podcasts I've released. By the way, I've recently got a certificate from my podcasting host saying that I have been downloaded over 50K times.
Wow.
50,000 times.
Congratulations.
So I'm
Just share
very,
your
yes,
secrets.
I am very pleased about that, and and hope the message spreads far and wide. And I have no idea what I owe that success to, except for all of you out there who listen to me, et cetera, who take faith in the words that I say. But you could. But I believe that the best way to consume the podcast is on the Aging Academy website. But you can also access them through iTunes and Stitcher and other podcast
the regular
directories.
means.
Yes, the regular means. So and you can always write to me directly from the website. I have an email where you can get to me directly. So I'm always interested in talking to others who want to start a dialogue of aging, especially those who feel a pain or a joy about aging. I want to collect what I call silver inspirations, those around us who reflect their age so well that others should be inspired to get older just to be where they are. Yeah, I would like to be one of those, but
well, you're well on your way. Well on your way.
But there are others around me as well who I call silver inspirations, who can inspire others to reduce their fear of aging and to look forward to some of the power that we gain with our aging brains and sometimes even our aging bodies.
Right. Well, you and I both think alike. Definitely. So I'd like to thank you for stopping by the show today. It's been great speaking with you and a lot of fun. And definitely everybody check out Lee Mowatt and the Aging Academy. You'll be in for a treat.
Your work is important as well. To all of us, Gail, who tries to reflect this aging situation and change the dialogue and give a perspective on it that's empowering. This is important. What you're doing is important. What I'm doing is important. And many other people are starting to enter into this dialogue and narrative changing. So thank you for the work that you are doing as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So,
right. Okay. So it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you so much for having me. I would love talking to you today.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and check out our website at www.growingolderwithgusto.com.